Well, welcome. Hello. We're doing a podcast.
We're doing a podcast at the beach. At the beach.
This is probably the best place we'll ever record.
I mean, maybe. It's possible.
We're going to kick another beach.
many Episode 2, also at a beach. Just kidding.
I mean, maybe.
We drive up the coast. So welcome to the pilot episode of Average Age Groupers.
I'm Laura. I will be one of your podcast hosts from Wisconsin. We are currently in California, and we are going to bring all things age group endurance racing to you.
Love it. I'm Maggie from Wisconsin, currently live in DC, but will be moving to Minneapolis in August. I just raced 70.3 Oceanside a few days ago. So that's why we're in California. And now we're just hanging out. So perfect time to start this.
I'm Holly. I will be one of the co-hosts and producer/editor of this podcast. So if it sounds bad, it's my fault. But yeah, very excited to start this project more officially. A few years ago, we started a YouTube channel called Average Age Groupers. And some of you might be seeing this on that channel. But as that evolved, we started talking about the idea of telling age group stories maybe about a year. Well, it's not been quite a year. Let's call it 10 months ago. It was last summer as a possibility. So now we're just making that official. We're doing the thing, taking it out of my brain and onto the interwebs.
All of the interwebs. I think our biggest goal for this podcast is to bring the everyday norm of those of us that have full-time jobs, marriages, kids, all of the above, and kind of tell the story of what it's like to be just your average person doing endurance sports. And also bringing it from, you don't have to be doing a full Ironman to be doing this kind of world. 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, ultras, gravel bikes. What did I miss?
Swim, run, swim, bike, run. No,
the things.
Anything else? Anything you want to be doing to get outside and moving.
Mm-hmm. And just how bringing it not from a pro athlete perspective, we see and hear all of the stories and podcasts of these pro athletes. And so we wanted to bring the everyday stories of normal people.
So I think we'll share some of our stories from races, from training, from daily life. Also, hopefully at some point, we incorporate other people's stories, whether that's talking to people at races, having some guests on to record with us. It could be cool to have some guests to talk about nutrition, for example, or strength training, maybe.
Please more of that. All of us could do better at that.
What? I'm working on it. Somewhat. But yeah, I think there could be a cool aspect of community for this too. Hopefully you can connect with other people's stories that are similar situations, and maybe that gives you an idea of a race you want to do, or even just a place you want to travel to try biking and running there. And you can hear from other people where all the good spots are. And
I think we've shared pretty much our initial, what we're trying to gain out of this. And so to kick this off, because I think we will do our stories, like Maggie mentioned, hopefully other people's stories. Hopefully we don't get attacked by birds while we're sitting here. But Maggie, like she mentioned, just raced 70.3 Oceanside. So maybe we can just do a quick little race recap, and then we'll talk more about goals for the podcast, other things we're hoping to cover, maybe a little bit about our backgrounds. Actually, let's do our backgrounds first. Then Maggie can do a race recap.
maybe entertaining. Somebody want to keep that.
All right. So why you should care about us and any advice we may have to offer. So my background, this is high level. I started in endurance sports about a decade ago as an outlet to burn up some energy from not training horses anymore. Prior to that, I was a horse trainer and spending a ton of time outside with the horses. And as I wound down that part of my life, I needed some place to burn up energy. And so we started doing the endurance sports thing. Signed up for a half marathon, very, very quickly escalated to ultra marathon. And then shortly after that, triathlon, Ironman. Now we're headed in kind of a gravel bike direction, but that's a little bit of the overview of my endurance experience and kind of where I'll be sharing from.
I started running back in 2011 when I went to college. And just the natural progression from there, kind of 5K, half marathon, marathon. And then the pipeline of running to triathlon sucked me in because I was just kind of bored with just doing road races. So got into triathlon because of some people I knew. Had to learn how to swim as an adult, which I feel like we've talked about. We could have a whole episode on that, and we probably will. And so that went to triathlon, Ironman progressed, and now we don't know what we're doing or headed towards. Maybe this will be the motivation to figure something out.
And for me, I grew up swimming. So I swam competitively through the end of high school. I grew up just outside of Madison, Wisconsin, which has a really strong triathlon community. And my family was fairly involved in that. We always had friends who were doing triathlons. We always went and cheered for a bunch of them. So I actually did my first sprint triathlon in high school. And then when I went to college, I didn't want to swim anymore or just swim. I was kind of burnt out on that. So I joined the club triathlon team at my school, did a few sprints and Olympics, and kind of took a break from triathlon and most endurance sports for a bit until after I graduated. And then it got to be COVID. And then I just said, well, I'm going to sign up for an Ironman. And then I've stuck with it ever since. That's how I got here.
So all that to say, we've got over 3 decades of experience in the endurance world, successes, many failures, and everything between. So we've been through it enough times that we feel like we have some insight.
And lots of stories to tell.
Lots of stories to tell.
Yeah. Well, should I do my Oceanside? Okay. So I just did Oceanside 70.3 on Saturday. This was my first time doing this race. It is kind of funny. There was something you said earlier, Holly, that made me think about like the timing of this year. Oh, it was when you were talking about like the timing of us last talking about this podcast. It is the end of March. I last raced in November for 70.3 Worlds, and it feels like a very short time since I did a very late season race last year and a very early season race this year, which maybe at some point I should take like a really full break. Like truly rest my body.
Rest and recovery, what is that?
Maybe next year. Anyways, so this felt like, it did feel like an early season race, but living in DC, it's a bit further south than Wisconsin. I actually was able to train outside quite a bit for this, which was very nice leading up to it. So this race, it's a pretty big race. It was what, 3,400 people?
Yeah, and
3,600
or 1,400 were first time 70.3 years.
Yeah. And I think you could like feel that energy and transition in the morning. There was just a lot of like nervous feel. And I don't know, that energy kind of gets to me. So I was racing and our friend Erin was racing. And I was like, Erin, do you feel this? Because I can feel the nervous energy like in my chest. And I was like, I got to get out of this. So we set up our stuff. We left transition, sat outside of it for a little while. And this is a lesson that I continually have to learn, that I need to line up earlier for the swim because the race started at 6:50. We probably went to line up for the swim at like 6:20 and had to really weave our way through a lot of people to get up to where we wanted to be for the swim start. if you've never done an Ironman or a half Ironman, they have signs with your estimated swim finish time. So like for half, like under 27 minutes, 27 to 30, et cetera, et cetera. And you have to go stand by the sign of what you expect your swim finish time to be. By the time Erin and I were going to line up, everyone had lined up until like 50 minutes, and I was trying to get to the sign for 30 minutes. So I had a lot of people to go through, but we made it up to where we wanted to be. And then this swim is in a bay. So the water was really flat, which was really nice. It is saltwater. So that's always interesting. I feel like I always leave a saltwater swim feeling very thirsty. Sometimes, like when you did North Carolina, didn't they have water for you in transition?
Yes, they did.
They did not have that here. So it's nice when you get out of a saltwater swim to be able to like gurgle some
Rinse
water.
your face off,
yeah,
too.
and be like, okay, get the salt water out of here. But that was not. Well, I mean, maybe it was available and I just missed it, but that's definitely a possibility. But anyway, it was a good swim. It's you basically go out quite a ways. You make a turn, do a short little bit after that turn, and then come back in the way you came. So it's like a long kind of loop. There was a little bit of chop on just like the one end where you make the short turn, but overall it was pretty smooth. I felt really good, honestly. Sometimes I struggle with triathlon swimming coming from a swimming background. I'm like, man, I used to be so much faster than this. I am so slow. But this one I actually felt pretty decent, pretty smooth in the water. The only like frustration I had, and this happens at every race, is that people are not very good at swimming straight. I think because I come again from a swim background, I can look up and sight for a buoy and then put my head down and do 15 strokes. And I'm still going straight towards that buoy. And that is not the case for a lot of people. So there were some people that were zigzagging in front of me and that I ended up swimming over. But otherwise, it was a pretty good swim. Got out of the swim and it's a really, really long transition. You exit the swim where you start, and then you basically have to run the whole length of transition and then run the whole length of transition again to grab your bike and then exit the transition area. So yeah, I switched my watch from swim to transition, and I was like, I feel like this should be recording my distance because I think I'm going like a half mile. There were wetsuit peelers, which is always great. It's really helpful just to have them get your wetsuit off quickly. Grabbed my bike and headed out on the bike course. This bike course, there's a little bit of a stem, and then it's just like a really big loop. Especially at the beginning, it was pretty narrow, which was just a little tricky because people tend to be bunched up, especially at the beginning of the bike coming out of the swim. And there wasn't a ton of space to pass. And the road was pretty rough for a lot of the bike course. They did a decent job of marking it, but just sometimes with it being narrow and rough road and passing was not the easiest thing. Also around mile maybe 8, it got really foggy and my glasses fogged up too, which has never happened for me before. So I had them like down on the ridge of my nose and I was trying to look like above the glasses to be able to see where I was going. Overall, I really liked this bike. Most of the climbing was between miles 20 to 40. And there were, I feel like, 3 big climbs. The first one felt really hard, but then after that, the next 2 felt much more manageable. And I always feel pretty good on some hills. So I liked that. It was cool because you would get to the top of them and then you could like look out and see California hills with like cool clouds and fog amongst them. So some really, really good views. This bike course is also interesting because it goes through Camp Pendleton. So for that whole stretch, obviously you can't have any spectators there. There were a few service people that were out and cheering. That was very nice of them. But otherwise, it's a pretty quiet stretch and a really unique part of this race. So that was just kind of cool to experience. What else happened on the bike?
Tell us about the hills.
The first one, I think, was like 12%, which is pretty steep, especially on a tri bike. I also am having this funky thing with my bike where the the blip on the left bar doesn't work super consistently. So every time going into a hill, I'm like, will I be able to shift in my front ring? Let's see.
Also, Maggie will tell a story one of these days about her Ironman experience, and it has to do with hills and her gears.
And yeah, that was a different bike, but still, yep. Actually, on this bike that I raced on a few weeks ago, I went on a ride with some friends and we went up a 12% grade hill and I was not able to shift in my front ring. So I did it in the big ring. Had some legs on me. No, but it was, I like the hills. I tend to do pretty well with them. So it's fun to be able to like pass people going up and then they pass me coming down. But yeah, I think maybe the most interesting thing about the hills is that the last race I did was 70.3 Worlds in Marbella, Spain, which had some pretty intense descending. And when I was doing that race, I just kept telling myself, like, stay in the bars, stay in the bars, stay in the bars. Your bike wants to stay up. It's fine. It's fine. And I think that was actually a really good experience because this race didn't have any super crazy downhills, but there was one where they had set a no passing zone because it was a downhill and they were doing construction on half of the road. And there were a few people in front of me that were clearly nervous about this descent, like braking and up, not in their bars. And I felt fully comfortable. So at that point, it was just frustrating because I was like, well, this is a no passing zone. So now I'm just stuck behind you. But a good confidence boost that I have become more comfortable on my bike, I guess. Better with bike handling. The last 14 miles of the bike course are mostly downhill. So that's fun. It's fast. And it feels downhill for that whole bit. I did have to stop and go to the bathroom, which I would love to figure out a way to not have to do that touring.
You learn how to pee on your bike.
I know. I've only ever done that. This is going to be another story. I've only ever done that in Musselman. I was not moving, though. I stopped on the side of the road, standing, peeing on my bike. But yeah, so I stopped at the mile 45 aid station. There was a lovely volunteer there. I asked her to rack my bike for me while I was using the porta potty. She ended up holding it the whole time, gave me a gel before I left, held on to my bike while I clipped in. And then she was like, come on, you got it. So she was an angel. Love her. Yeah, I feel like that was... Oh, it was kind of fun. Going up one of the hills, there was a media moto just riding along next to me. I looked at all the finisher pics photos. None of those are in there. So I don't know what Ironman is doing with all these photos and maybe videos of me. They're somewhere.
It's going to be for their own media team.
Yeah, I guess. I hope so. I don't know. The people around me in the race were like, wow, you've got fans. I was like, I guess so. But maybe not if they're not going to do anything with it. Yeah, but that was fun. I had a good time on the bike course. I felt good. I think I have more in me to do a faster bike, but I was kind of using this as a training race. So I'm overall happy with how it went. And then starting the run, you go along the beach and then you go up a hill, up a few hills, to the streets that parallel the beach. And it's a 2-loop course. There is absolutely zero shade on the whole run course. I was not pleased with that.
Her exact words to us when she saw us was, where are these clouds?
Fuck this sunny bullshit.
This sunny bullshit.
I tend to overheat, so I was again not happy about that. Also, the first few aid stations were out of ice, which is just never great. Also, I'm really confused about that because it's not like I was later on in the group of people. So how are you already out of ice?
Perspective for this race. This is probably the warmest they've had it in multiple years. 2 years ago, Holly and Aaron were here in winter hats and jackets while we spectated in shorts and t-shirts. So yeah, abnormally warm year doesn't make it any nicer.
For some people, it probably made it nicer. For me, I was not happy about it. But I think the run was good. It was nice because there are some hills, which I enjoy on both the bike and the run. I think mentally it's more difficult for me to do a very flat course. And also physically, it just feels like you never get any change in stimulus. And I think that gets to me. So I kind of liked the punchy hills. I was honestly expecting them to feel worse because everyone talks about in Oceanside, especially on the run, some of the hills are really steep and they're like really terrible, but they're so short. It felt fine. So that was good. The nice part about this run course too is that since it's 2 loops, you're passing other people racing all the time. So I got to see our friend Erin 3 times, get some good high fives, saw our friend Paul, saw other people, and like you're just getting good energy when you get to cheer for other people racing and have them, cheer for you too. There are also tons of spectators on this course for like almost the entirety of the run course. There are people, and that makes it feel really good. You've got support the whole way. I did like actively make some dumb decisions for the run. The first was my shoe choice. I was wearing my on Cloud Monster Hypers that are now in a garbage can in Oceanside because I have had those since 2024. I ran a full marathon, an Ironman, 4 halves, and several training runs in those shoes. They were well past their
mileage.
Yeah. They were dead, and I could feel that by the end. My feet were not super pleased. But shoes are expensive, so you do what you got to do. And then the other decision I made that was not the smartest is I had a gel within the first mile and then did not have any more nutrition after that. At mile like 6, 7, 8, 9, every time I passed those mile markers, I was like, okay, take a gel. And then I couldn't get myself to take a gel. So I thought I could kind of gut it out. And I did. Like it was fine. But by mile 11, I was definitely out of energy. And that's what happens when you don't eat. So I did have a little bit of Coke from one of the aid stations at that point, but by that time I like needed fuel, so it was like too late to be doing that. Whatever. I finished. It was fine. There was a brief moment at mile like 5 of the run where I was like, it would be really cool if I negative split this. And then that did not happen. But still happy with that run. I think it was technically, according to Strava, it was a half marathon PR. I don't know. I don't really keep super close track of that. I think I still could do a faster run. So we're going to try to do that at some point. And then, yeah, technically, this is a PR for the half Ironman distance for me. It's funny because I feel like that means nothing.
It's hard to because it's so course dependent.
Course dependent, condition dependent.
How you're feeling dependent.
Like Chattanooga last year would have been a huge PR, except there was no swim.
Yeah.
So then does that count? Not really.
Right.
But even like if there was a swim, it still would have been a PR. Like I would have truly had to drown for it not to be a PR. So I don't know. Anyway,
I feel like you could, if you came back and raced Oceanside and you've had a faster finish time, then it's like, okay, yeah, I've PR'd this course.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is interesting because they're all course dependent.
I kind of like that about triathlon though, and it feels different from running, at least, where like, I don't know, I feel like in running, people are very focused on time PRs. And I don't feel that as much with triathlon. Yeah, but overall, I was really happy with the day. We went and jumped in the ocean afterwards. That felt great. I don't know that I would do this race again necessarily. Mostly because there are other races I want to do. And I didn't really love the heat. Again, it's unusual for it to be as hot as it was, but I would prefer a race where there's a greater chance of it being cold or where there's at least like some shade. That would be nice.
I think that's one of like our goals too with this podcast is we love to travel and race. Mm-hmm. And so bringing kind of our perspective of these races to the average person, because a lot of times you see the videos and the podcasts of like all of these pros doing it, and there's a very different side of it when you've got just a normal person doing it, checking in, going to transition, setting everything up. The flow is just a little bit different.
I think that covered everything from the race.
Yeah, I think that was a good recap. And mentioning the pros is like a good chance to also say while this podcast is not about pro triathlon in any way, and that's not part of our goal, we are fans of the sport, so likely to talk about pros that we saw or were excited to see or maybe had the chance to interact with. And I think that's one of the things that makes endurance sports kind of special. Maybe not elite marathon, but I think trail running, gravel racing, triathlon is just such a cool opportunity to experience the same course as the pros and also at the same time to really like kind of be sharing in that moment, be able to cheer for them while you're racing, or if you come to spectate and be a Sherpa to get to see them up close and personal, which I just don't feel like happens in other professional sports in the same way. So I'm sure as we go through this podcast, we'll touch on those moments as well, or things that we're excited about having to do with pros and racing and all of that.
Yeah, like the pros started Oceanside 10 minutes before age groupers did. So our friend Aaron, when he was, well, Holly's husband, our friend, when he was out on the run course, he was like seeing the female pros also out on the run course. And that's a really cool thing to be able to be like, I have been following this person. Now we're racing the same course, same time. I can be cheering for them. You can also see the pros often as you're like checking in and wandering around in the days beforehand. And how often do you get that opportunity with other sports to so casually interact with the professionals and make connections with them? I think it's a really cool part of this. And I mean, like you're saying, gravel racing is very similar. I'm actually really looking forward to that when we do Unbound later this year.
Yeah. So maybe let's just quick chat about what we are doing so far on the plan for 2026. I've made a bit of a pivot this year, thanks to Maggie. It's Maggie's fault. Aaron and I both blame Maggie. A bit of a pivot to gravel. So we did get into the Unbound 200 lottery, and that's sort of the let's just go head first into this thing. Like, no, like dipping your toe in. This is like full on, maybe a bit in over my head. So as part of that, though, going to be doing a couple other gravel experiences. One of them is, it's not really a race. It's more just a, here's a map, good luck. But then the other is like a newer race that's in Wisconsin called Escape the Badger. The good luck race is called the Dairy Roubaix. So if you follow bike, you know, it's kind of a play off of the race in France or the segment from the Tour de France. And then in the fall, I am currently signed up for 70.3 North Carolina. Hopefully we'll have some other friends join us. Right now it's just two of us signed up, and maybe she will want to come tell her story on the podcast. She'd be a good guest. So I won't give it away yet.
My biggest plan at this point is to run a leg of a 100K relay race we have coming up in 2 weeks, April 11th, kind of on this journey of figuring out what I want to do. So unfortunately, now all of you get to come along for that ride.
Unfortunately.
To figure out what I'm going to do. So yeah, we've got a handful of friends running the 100K relay. We have a friend doing the 50K solo. The girls mentioned Unbound. I will be, along with some of Maggie's friends, a Sherpa extraordinaire. I'll provide the snacks and entertainment, moral support, which we will need. And then we're going to Placid in July.
Yeah, so that can maybe transition to what I'm doing. I am doing this 100K relay in 2 weeks. And then I'm doing Unbound 200-mile gravel race at the end of May with Holly, Aaron, my friends Hales and Alyssa. Really excited for that. I have been getting into gravel biking over like the last year and a half-ish, and I love it. It's just a different stimulus. It's fun. It feels like you're more out in nature, and Unbound is such an iconic race. And it's also the 20th anniversary of Unbound. So it's a really cool year to be doing it. So that's at the end of May. And then in July, I'm doing Ironman Lake Placid, which I'm also really excited about. The last Ironman I did was in 2024, so I've had a little break from the full distance. And I really, really, I don't know if I should be putting this out there yet, but I really would love to qualify for Kona at Ironman Lake
Speak it
Placid.
into existence.
Been sort of speaking it into existence a little bit. How public do I want to make that? Speaking into existence, I don't know. But yeah, I'm really excited for that one.
It's about to be really public unless you'd like me to edit that all out. So you better speak now or forever hold your peace because I won't know where to cut if you don't say so.
No, we can leave it in there.
Yeah.
Qualify. It'll just probably be like 7 years until I try again because I'm starting a PhD program in the fall. So go big or go home, you
Why
know?
not? Why not? And I think, I mean, talking about your PhD program, part of a lot of what we're going to talk about too is like, we all have full-time jobs. Like this is not our gig. This is our side gig. And hopefully it goes somewhere. But how do you train for these high volume endurance sports while you also work a full-time job, have relationships, have families, have a hobby outside of it?
A social
Question
life?
mark?
What?
So kind of that journey as well. And talking to other people, a big thing we talked about is like getting stories from people and sharing those stories with the greater audience because you don't always hear about the 40-year-old who decided to do this, blah, blah, blah. So,
Yeah, and I think so many people that do endurance sports, I think they would love to share their stories. I think they're really like transformative experiences for a lot of people. So hopefully we can capture some of that. I think it would be really cool if we talk to people at races and then have guests on the podcast. And I mean, it could be like little things too, but I'd love to hear from other people.
Well, hopefully for Unbound, we'll be able to do something cool because we'll be bringing kind of groups of people together from different places for that. So maybe we can, if we're not all dead at the end of that, make some time.
We might be dead.
We might be dead.
We will probably be dead.
We'll be figuring out. I'm a little worried about the cutoff and that I might be right up against it, but we'll see how it goes. We got like 8 weeks left of the training block.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of miles to cover in that time.
Mhm.
But yeah, so yeah, I think it'll be fun to bring some of those different experiences and people's sort of raw thoughts and emotions, their why. I think the why people do this is really cool to hear, you know, if it's depending on if it's family or if it's proving something to yourself or so there's all of that. And then there's, you know, there's the one and done, like I just wanted to prove to myself I could do it stories, which I love. But then there's also the I'm now addicted to this thing and it's like my whole personality. And those stories are also interesting to me because everybody has sort of a different reason. So yeah, I'm really excited to capture those and share them from that perspective and not necessarily elite perspective, but more just like an age grouper trying to do it. But we're going to cover the full breadth and depth of being an age grouper because we've got folks like Maggie who are capable of qualifying for world championships in Kona. And
Hopefully.
then we have the party pace folks, which, you know, is still.
we also support a
Yes.
party face.
Yes,
We
I'm all
support
about
every pace.
Yeah, every pace, party pace, whatever you want to do, we're here for that.
I think it'll be interesting to Laura. I think you'll be able to share this of like when your why is changing and how you navigate that and stay involved in the sport or change which sport you're involved in or just like shift the focus.
Yeah, I mean, we will eventually all tell kind of our stories, but very summarized. Holly and I did Ironman 2 years ago now, and they talk about the post Ironman blues. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. But I feel like I'm more so in it now than I was immediately post Ironman because I'm now sitting in this place of what do I want to do? Like, do I want to do another half this year? I do want to do another full, but right now is like a very weird chapter that I'm working through. So
I think we're all going to have really interesting stories this year.
Well, I think to your point of like Ironman blues and working through it, not to make it about this, because I think we can do a whole podcast about this and like the Ironman experience. But I do think it's interesting the ignorance is bliss of the first time is like a real thing. Like every time you're like out for your longest ride, out for your longest swim, out for your longest run, it's often like a first time in the context of doing an Ironman. And so you're dedicating all of this time, but you're sort of like, don't really know what it's going to take because everything's like new, every new distance. And then once you've done it, it's like, oh, that's such a huge time commitment. Now to like make that commitment again, I know what I'm getting into, and do I want to
Yeah.
make that commitment again?
I think that's like a big part. And I feel like I feel like we are coming up with so many topics just discussing this podcast of like the sacrifice that you have to put into, especially for Ironman training. Like it is probably one of the most selfish things I have done. And so to think forward of like doing that again and how that's going to feel. Also, because everyone around you experienced it once. And so the people close to you are like, really, you're going to do this again? Like, so essentially you'll be out of my life for the next 10 months. And so kind of that part of it.
I think we're all going to have like very different perspectives on some of that too, because, you know, none of us have kids. One, that's worth calling out because there are average age groupers, and hopefully we'll talk to some at some point and bring them in on this who do have kids, which adds a whole different layer of complexity to the sport and any kind of endurance sport, right? Like what it takes to do it when you also have to keep a human alive. You know, so we don't have that, but I think we'll all come at it too with different perspectives of like navigating the training and all of that. And hopefully it'll be helpful to someone to hear those stories. And I also hope that we can inspire people who maybe look at pros or elite age groupers and think, oh, I could never do that.
Or even when people are like, oh, I could never. It's like, yeah, I thought that same exact thing, but you can. You are capable of so much more than anyone thinks.
Yeah. And I think also like sharing some practical advice. There's so much when I first got into triathlon that I did not know. And similar in gravel biking, or now I'm trying more mountain biking. And I think we can share a lot of helpful tips to kind of lower the barrier to entry in some of these sports and just make it a smoother ride. And hopefully that helps some people stay in it too.
Watch time are we at?
We'll probably get
With good.
Do you want to wrap?
Ooh.
Okay.
I think that's it. Pilot episode. If you are listening to this and you have questions, thoughts, comments, slide into our DMs. If you know us,
Text
slide
us,
into our
you know.
inbox. And we're excited to see where this goes. And everyone's along with us.
You might be watching this on YouTube, and if you are, we'll make sure that the podcast links are in the show notes below. If you have stumbled upon us on Apple or Spotify, all the links to our socials and our YouTube are in the show notes. We'll be probably expanding the social presence at some point, but right now it'll primarily be Instagram and YouTube. And then, yeah, we would love to have you follow along. So if you are loving the idea of this podcast, please, please, please subscribe and leave us a review. And yeah, anything else?
Nope. Bye.